Olivia Bennet had always believed in fresh starts. New year, new resolutions, new apartment, new dreams, and now new job. She tugged nervously at the hem of her blazer as the subway screeched into the station. It was her first day as an executive assistant at Cole Media Group, one of the largest communications firms in Manhattan. She had spent the entire week practicing her smile in the mirror, memorizing elevator pitches, and mapping out her commute. What she hadn't planned for was the subway, stalling between stations for 10 whole minutes by the time the doors opened at Midtown. Olivia was already 15 minutes behind schedule. She sprinted up the steps, heels clicking, heart hammering, muttering, "Great start, live. Perfect impression." Cole Tower loomed ahead, a sleek 50-story monument of glass and steel. Its reflective windows caught the morning sun, blinding her as she pushed through the revolving doors. Inside, the lobby gleamed with marble floors, chrome accents, and a giant digital ticker broadcasting market updates. The air smelled faintly of expensive cologne and ambition. Olivia clutched her tote bag tighter. She was supposed to check in with HR before heading upstairs. Maybe if she moved fast, she could slip in unnoticed. She rounded a corner and collided, full force, with a man carrying a paper cup of coffee. The cup tilted, liquid splashing in a dark arc across his perfectly tailored suit jacket. "Oh my God." Olivia gasped, stumbling back. "I'm so sorry, I didn't see." The man froze, looking down at the stain spreading across his lapel. Slowly, his eyes lifted to hers, cold grey, sharp as steel. Olivia's stomach dropped. She knew that face. Everyone in New York did. Ethan Cole, CEO of Cole Media Group, 32 years old, self-made billionaire, known for his ruthless negotiation tactics and zero tolerance for incompetence, and she had just baptized him with lukewarm coffee. For a beat, the lobby seemed to hold its breath. People glanced their way, whispering. Olivia's cheeks flamed. "I'll pay for the dry cleaning," she blurted, fumbling for napkins in her bag. "Don't," Ethan said curtly, stepping back from her reach. His voice was low, clipped, a blade honed on years of boardroom battles. He looked at her as if she were an equation that didn't add up. "I really am sorry," Olivia tried again, her voice cracking. He studied her, eyes narrowing. "Name," she blinked. "What, your name, Olivia?" "Olivia Bennet." Something flickered in his gaze recognition. His jaw tightened. "You're late. HR was expecting you 10 minutes ago." Olivia's heart stopped. You know who I am. You're my new assistant." The words landed like a gavel. Her mouth went dry. "Oh, yes. Oh." He glanced once more at his stained jacket, then at her pale, wide-eyed face. "Follow me." He strode across the lobby without looking back. For a second, Olivia considered bolting. She could still run, pretend she'd gotten the address wrong. Find another job, one that didn't involve mortifying herself in front of Manhattan's most intimidating CEO, but her feet moved anyway, trailing him toward the elevators. Inside, silence pressed heavy. Ethan Cole stood like a statue, hands in his pockets, gaze fixed straight ahead. Olivia dared a quick side glance. His profile was severe, all sharp lines and controlled strength. Even with coffee stains, he radiated power. She cleared her throat. "I really didn't mean stop talking." Her mouth snapped shut, the elevator dinged, releasing them onto the 40th floor. Glass walls revealed sweeping views of the city, while rows of desks buzzed with activity. Employees froze as Ethan passed, eyes darting toward Olivia like she was a curiosity on display. Ethan led her into his corner of sleek furniture, shelves lined with industry awards, and a desk the size of her old apartment's kitchen table. He gestured toward a chair. "Sit." Olivia obeyed, clutching her tote like a shield. "You'll coordinate my schedule, screen my calls, manage travel, and ensure I'm never late," he recited. "You'll work late nights, weekends if necessary, and you'll do it without mistakes." "Understood." Olivia nodded quickly. "Yes, Mr. Cole. Good. Because I don't give second chances." Her throat tightened. This was not how she had pictured her first day. In her fantasies, she'd impressed him with efficiency, maybe even a clever joke. Instead, she was the assistant who spilled coffee on his $1,000 suit. But as Ethan turned to his computer, Olivia straightened her shoulders. She'd fought hard for this job. She wasn't going to let one disastrous first impression, no matter how humiliating, define her. "Understood," she said firmly. Ethan's eyes flicked to hers, just for a second. Something unreadable passed over his face, then vanished. "Get to work, Ms. Bennett." And just like that, her new life began. Olivia had barely warmed the chair outside Ethan Cole's office before the first assignment landed on her desk. A thick stack of folders dropped with a thud, startling her. The man who delivered them, a senior manager with an expensive tie and a smirk, leaned down. "From Mr. Cole," he said. "He wants them all sorted, cross-checked, and digitized by tomorrow morning." Olivia blinked. "All of them? There must be, 500 pages? 650, the manager corrected, clearly enjoying himself. "Welcome to Cole Media, sweetheart." He walked away, leaving her staring at the Everest of paperwork. Around her, the office buzzed with activity. Assistants typed furiously, phones rang, executives marched in and out. No one seemed to notice the new girl drowning in her first real task. Olivia bit her lip. Maybe this was Ethan's way of making sure she quit before lunch. She almost laughed, except her hands were already shaking by noon. Her desk was covered in color-coded sticky notes. Her laptop balanced precariously on top of a stack. She worked through lunch, through bathroom breaks, her fingers flying as she scanned, organized, and cross-checked data. "New girls, not gonna last a week," someone whispered near the copy machine. Olivia pressed her shoulders back, refusing to let them see the sting. By 4 p.m., her eyes burned from staring at the screen. But she had made progress, half the files already uploaded. She paused only when a deep voice cut through the air. Double quotes, "Ms. Bennett." She nearly jumped. Ethan Cole stood in the doorway of his office, arms crossed. "Yes, Mr. Cole," she asked, trying not to sound winded. "Come in." She followed him, notebook clutched like a lifeline. His office, with its glass walls and sweeping skyline views, felt like stepping onto another planet. Sterile, powerful, intimidating. Ethan gestured to a chair. "Status update." Olivia swallowed. "I've finished about half of the documents. Everything's been scanned and tagged by category. I'll complete the rest before the deadline." His brows lifted slightly. "You think you'll finish 600 files in less than 24 hours? "Yes," she said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. He studied her, eyes sharp, as if measuring her against an invisible scale. Then he leaned back in his chair. Most assistants would have complained, or quit. "I'm not most assistants," Olivia said before she could stop herself. The corner of his mouth twitched not a smile, but something close. We'll see. By 8 p.m., the office had emptied. Lights dimmed across the floor, but Olivia was still there, sleeves rolled up, hair falling loose around her face. She munched on a granola bar while flipping through spreadsheets, her focus unwavering. At one point, the janitor passed by and whistled. "Late night, huh?" Olivia grinned weakly. "First day, trying not to get fired. You'll fit right in," he chuckled at nearly midnight. She finally leaned back, exhausted but triumphant. Every file was scanned, labeled, and neatly organized in digital folders. She rubbed her aching wrists, saving the final backup with a sigh of relief. When she looked up, she nearly screamed. Ethan Cole was standing in the doorway, watching her. "Mr. Cole," she gasped. I didn't hear you." He walked in, gaze flicking over the neat stacks of completed files. "You actually did it." Olivia straightened. "Of course I did. You asked for it by morning." "It's done." For the first time, his expression shifted from cool indifference to something resembling respect. "Most people would have left it half done and made excuses," he said quietly. "I don't make excuses," Olivia replied, meeting his gaze. Silence stretched between them, charged and heavy. Finally, Ethan nodded once. "Good work, Ms. Bennett. Go home. Get some sleep." She expected dismissal, a curt wave of the hand. Instead, he reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a small envelope, and set it in front of her. "What's this?" she asked. "Dinner voucher. One of my contacts sent them over." His tone was matter-of-fact, but there was a glint in his eyes. "You'll need it after tonight." Olivia hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Thank you. Don't thank me," he said, turning back to his computer. "Just be here on time tomorrow." As she left the office, the voucher tucked into her bag, Olivia couldn't help the small spark of triumph warming her chest. Maybe. Ethan Cole was the ice boss everyone feared, but ice, she thought, could crack. And maybe, just maybe, she was the one who could do it. The next morning, Olivia arrived 15 minutes early. She wasn't about to repeat her disastrous debut. The office floor hummed with tension. Whispers darted between cubicles like sparks. A major partnership meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock, and the air buzzed with the kind of nervous energy that said, "Don't screw this up." Olivia was barely at her desk when Ethan's voice rang out from his office. "Ms. Bennett, inside." She grabbed her notebook and hurried in. He was already dressed for war navy suit, sharp, tie perfectly knotted, eyes like polished steel. "Today," he said, without looking up from his laptop, "you'll be in the conference room. Take notes. Don't speak unless spoken to." Olivia nodded quickly. Understood, but she had a feeling nothing with Ethan Cole was ever that simple. By 10, the conference room gleamed under fluorescent lights. A long mahogany table stretched down the center, surrounded by executives from both Cole Media and their potential partner, a tech giant called Apex Solutions. The presentation started smoothly, charts, figures, projections. Ethan delivered each point with calm authority. Olivia scribbled notes, eyes darting between speakers. Then, midway through, a problem arose. One of the Apex executives, a sharp-faced man named Grayson, leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Cole, your numbers don't add up. You claim a 20% increase in reach, but your social engagement metrics tell a different story. Care to explain the discrepancy?" The room stiffened. Olivia felt the air shift, heavy with unease. Ethan's jaw tightened as he clicked to the next slide. But before he could answer, Olivia's eyes caught something on the page. Her fingers trembled over her notes. She'd spent hours cross-checking data yesterday. She knew exactly where the issue came from. Mislabeled metric in the preliminary report. She hesitated. Ethan had told her not to speak. But if she stayed silent, the deal might crumble. Her pulse thundered. And then she raised her hand. "Excuse me," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. Every head turned, including Ethan's. His eyes narrowed cold, warning. But Olivia pressed on. "The discrepancy isn't in the actual performance. It's a labeling error from the earlier draft of the report. The 20% increase is correct. It reflects audience reach across multiple platforms. The engagement numbers listed here are from a single platform, taken before the campaign ended." A beat of silence. Then Grayson frowned, scrolling through his own copy. Slowly, his face shifted from skepticism to reluctant acknowledgement. "She's right. The metrics are from week 2, not final." Murmurs rippled across the table. Ethan's gaze cut to Olivia. For a moment, his expression was unreadable. Then he turned back to the executives. "As my assistant just clarified, the numbers stand. Any further questions?" The meeting moved forward. By the end, Apex's team was nodding. Handshakes exchanged, contracts pending. But Olivia barely registered the victory. Her stomach twisted as she replayed Ethan's glare. Had she just destroyed her career on day 2? When the meeting ended, executives filtered out, chattering about next steps. Ethan lingered, his posture rigid, his expression carved from stone. "Ms. Bennett," he said finally. "Stay." Olivia swallowed hard, clutching her notebook. "I'm sorry, Mr. Cole. I know you told me not to speak, but I couldn't just sit there and correct me in front of partners." His tone was sharp, slicing. Her throat tightened. "I wasn't trying to undermine you. I saw the mistake. If I'd stayed quiet, the deal might have failed." He interrupted. He stepped closer, eyes stormy. "Do you think I don't know my own numbers?" Olivia's pulse raced. "I think you were blindsided, and I helped." Silence. His jaw worked, as if he were biting back a retort. Finally, he exhaled, slow and controlled. "You took a risk." "I did," Olivia admitted. Her voice softened, but it paid off. Something shifted in his eyes. The steel softened, just barely, revealing a flicker of something else: reluctant respect. "You are right," he said at last. The words seemed to cost him something. "Don't let it happen again." Olivia blinked. "So, am I fired?" For the first time, the corner of his mouth twitched. "Not today," he turned, gathering his papers. But as he passed her, his voice dropped low, almost grudgingly. "Good work, Ms. Bennett." Back at her desk, Olivia collapsed into her chair, her heart still racing. Around her, co-workers whispered, casting curious glances. The new girl had spoken up in front of Ethan Cole and lived to tell the tale. Lily, one of the junior assistants, leaned over. "You've got guts, Bennett." Nobody interrupts the ice boss. Olivia laughed shakily. "Trust me, I didn't plan it." But inside, something warmed. For the first time since she'd started, she didn't feel like she was drowning. She'd held her ground. And Ethan terrifying, impossible, Ethan had noticed, that evening. As she gathered her things, she passed Ethan's office. The door was half open. He was at his desk, tie loosened, staring out at the skyline. She hesitated, then tapped the frame lightly. "Good night, Mr. Cole." He looked up, his expression unreadable. "Good night, Miss Bennet." As she turned to leave, his gaze lingered, following her until the door clicked shut. For the first time in a long time, Ethan Cole felt the ice crack, and he wasn't sure whether to fight it or let it break him open. The city glowed like molten gold against the night sky. From the 40th floor, the windows of Cole Tower framed Manhattan in glittering chaos. Olivia rubbed her temples, staring at the endless spreadsheets glowing on her screen. It was past 9, the office nearly deserted, but the workload showed no mercy. Ethan had assigned her to help finalize details for a new campaign, and it was the kind of task that demanded perfection. She wasn't alone, though through the glass wall she could see Ethan at his desk, sleeves rolled up, tie discarded, leaning over documents with the same relentless focus he carried everywhere. The rest of the office had gone dark hours ago, but his lights still burned. It struck her that he wasn't just the ice boss. He was a man who lived and breathed this company, a man who seemed to carry the weight of it on his shoulders. Olivia sighed, grabbing the stack of reports she had finished. She knocked gently on his open door. "Final draft for the campaign schedule," she said, setting the papers on his desk. Ethan glanced up, eyes sharp but weary. "You stayed late, so did you?" "I always do." She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Maybe that's the problem." For a moment, he looked almost surprised, like no one had ever dared to suggest he could have a problem. Then, to her shock, the corner of his mouth quirked upward. "Sit," he said. Gesturing to the chair opposite, Olivia sat, tucking her hands in her lap. The silence stretched until she couldn't stand it. "Do you ever take a break?" Ethan leaned back, eyes drifting to the skyline beyond the glass. "Not often." "Why?" His gaze sharpened, as though he wasn't used to being questioned. But something in her expression must have disarmed him, because his voice softened. "My father built this company from the ground up," he said slowly. "When he stepped down, he told me one thing: if you stop moving, you lose." Olivia frowned. "Sounds exhausting." "It is," Ethan admitted. "But it's the only way I know." She studied him, seeing not just the intimidating CEO, but the man behind the reputation. The long hours, the iron control, the loneliness in his eyes, it all painted a picture she hadn't expected. "You know," she said carefully, "sometimes stopping doesn't mean losing. Sometimes it just means breathing." His lips twitched again, almost amused. "And what would you know about that? I know that people don't come to this cafe down the street just for coffee. They come to sit, to rest, to remind themselves life isn't just deadlines and numbers." Ethan chuckled, low and quiet. "You're very sure of yourself, Miss Bennet." "Not really," she said with a grin. "But I am sure you'd be less terrifying if you tried it." To her shock, he laughed a real laugh, brief but genuine. The sound startled her almost as much as it startled him. For a moment, the ice boss was gone. In his place was a man-tired human, and maybe even lonely. The hours slipped by. They worked side by side, reviewing reports, trading dry jokes. At one point, Olivia caught him watching her as she scribbled notes, his eyes softer than she'd ever seen. "Why do you stay?" he asked suddenly. She blinked. "What do you mean?" "You're smart. You could work anywhere. Why here?" Olivia hesitated. The truth tumbled out before she could stop it. "Because I need to prove to myself I can." that I'm not just the girl who settles. I want to do something that matters. Ethan studied her, his expression unreadable. But something in his gaze told her he understood more than he let on. Silence settled, but it wasn't uncomfortable. The city lights flickered against the glass, casting shadows across the office. For the first time, Olivia didn't feel like she was sitting across from her boss. She felt like she was sitting across from a man who carried his own scars. It was nearly midnight when they wrapped up. Olivia gathered her things, stifling a yawn. "You did good work tonight," Ethan said quietly. "Thank you." She hesitated, then added, "You too." He raised a brow. "Are you grading me now?" She smirked. Maybe. For a beat they just stood there, the air charged with something unspoken. Then Ethan cleared his throat, slipping back into the armor of professionalism. "I'll have a car take you home," he said. Olivia shook her head. "It's fine. I'll grab the subway at this hour." "No." His tone brooked no argument. "Wait downstairs." She wanted to protest, but the look in his eyes silenced her. Not cold, not commanding, protective. And as she rode the elevator down, Olivia realized something had shifted. The ice boss wasn't just ice, and maybe, just maybe, he was starting to thaw. The annual Cole Media Gala was one of the city's most anticipated events, glittering night of champagne, designer gowns, and enough networking to power Wall Street for a year. Olivia had heard about it for weeks, whispered in break rooms and breathlessly analyzed by assistants who lived for the chance to brush shoulders with Manhattan's elite. She never expected to attend. Assistants weren't usually invited. So when Ethan Cole himself informed her that morning, "You'll be at the gala tonight, 7 o'clock, wear something formal," her jaw nearly hit the floor. "Me," she stammered. "You," he said, glancing up from his desk. "I need my schedule managed, introductions tracked, and someone competent to remind me when to leave before the board starts plotting marriages." Olivia blinked. Plotting marriages. His lips twitched. "You'll see." By the time she arrived that evening, Olivia felt entirely out of place. Her dress was a simple navy gown she'd borrowed from her cousin. Elegant, but nothing like the glittering sequins and silk swirling around the ballroom. Crystal chandeliers cast light across polished marble, and a live orchestra played as waiters weaved through the crowd with trays of champagne. She tugged self-consciously at her neckline, clutching the small clutch bag that suddenly felt too plain. And then she saw him. Ethan stood near the entrance, tall and commanding in a black tuxedo. His presence drew attention effortlessly, conversations dimming when he walked past. For once, Olivia couldn't blame the whispers. He looked devastating. When his eyes found her across the room, she froze. His gaze swept over her quick, assessing, but something in it softened. He crossed the floor, every step sure, until he was in front of her. "You clean up well, Ms. Bennett," he said quietly. Olivia laughed nervously. "That's probably the nicest thing you've ever said to me." "Don't get used to it," he replied. But the glint in his eyes betrayed the tease. The night unfolded in a blur of introductions and small talk. Olivia shadowed Ethan, scribbling notes in her phone as he exchanged pleasantries with CEOs, investors, and politicians. More than once, she caught people giving her curious looks, whispers about the assistant trailing after the untouchable Ethan Cole. But every time doubt crept in, Ethan would glance her way, his expression unreadable but grounding, as if to say, "You belong here." With me, it was nearly midnight when the orchestra shifted into a waltz. Couples began moving onto the floor, gowns sweeping, shoes clicking against marble. Olivia stepped back, ready to disappear into the edges. Then Ethan's voice cut through. "Dance with me." She blinked. "What?" He extended his hand. "You heard me." Olivia's pulse spiked. "I don't." "I'm not really Ms. Bennet," he interrupted, his tone softer than usual. "Take my hand." Hesitant, she placed her hand in his. His fingers curled firmly around hers, warm and steady, pulling her onto the floor. The world blurred. Music swelled. Suddenly she was in his arms, his hand at her waist, guiding her with effortless precision. "You can dance," she whispered, surprised. His lips curved faintly. "My mother insisted I learn. Said I'd need it someday. And here we are," Olivia murmured. "Here we are," he echoed. Their eyes met. For a moment, the room, the people, the music, all of it faded, leaving only the two of them. She felt the heat of his touch through silk, the steadiness of his steps, the intensity in his gaze. Something sparked unmistakable, undeniable. After the song ended, neither moved right away. They lingered on the floor, caught in a silence that hummed louder than the orchestra. Finally, Ethan cleared his throat, breaking the spell. "I think it's time we leave." Outside, the cold night air wrapped around them, crisp and bracing after the heat of the ballroom. A car waited at the curb, but Ethan didn't move toward it. Instead, he looked at her, hands in his pockets, expression unusually uncertain. "You did well tonight," he said quietly. "Thank you," Olivia replied, her voice softer than she intended. Their eyes held. She wondered if he could hear her heartbeat echoing in the stillness. She wondered if he felt the same electric pull that left her breathless. He took a step closer. Just one. Enough to bridge the distance. Enough to make her wonder, is he going too? But then his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Ethan glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening. Without a word, he slipped the phone back into his pocket. The ice returned. "I'll have the driver take you home," he said, his tone back to business. Olivia's chest ached with disappointment, but she nodded. "Good night, Mr. Cole," as the car pulled away. She watched him through the window, standing alone on the sidewalk, hands shoved in his pockets, staring into the night like a man at war with himself. And Olivia knew, with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified her, something between them had changed. Monday mornings at Cole Media were brutal on the best of days. But this one was worse. Olivia knew something was wrong the second she stepped onto the 40th floor. Conversations hushed as she passed, heads bent close together, whispers trailing behind her like shadows. Some looked at her with curiosity, others smirked outright. She reached her desk, trying to ignore the prickle at the back of her neck. Lily, the junior assistant who had been kind to her since day one, leaned in with wide eyes. "Liv, don't check the gossip blogs." Her stomach dropped. Lily bit her lip, sliding her phone discreetly across the desk. On the screen was a headline plastered in bold letters: "Ethan Cole's mystery date. Assistant steals the spotlight at Cole Gala." Beneath it was a photo, grainy but clear enough. Ethan and Olivia on the dance floor, his hand at her waist, her face tilted up toward his. The caption beneath it read, "Is Cole Media's CEO mixing business with pleasure?" Olivia's breath caught. Heat rushed to her cheeks. She scrolled further, dozens of comments, dissecting her appearance, questioning her motives. She's just after his money. Classic office affair. Doesn't she know her place? Her hands trembled as she set the phone down. "I'm so sorry," Lily whispered. "It's everywhere." The day dragged like quicksand. Olivia felt eyes on her in every hallway, whispers curling like smoke in her wake. At lunch, 2 women from marketing passed by, their voices just loud enough to carry. She probably planned it. Look at her, small-town girl. Big-time ambition. Bet she won't last a month. Olivia clenched her jaw, forcing herself not to react. But the words sank deep. What hurt most wasn't the gossip. It was Ethan's silence. She'd seen him that morning walking out of his office, immaculate as always. He had glanced at her, just for a moment, but said nothing. No denial, no defense, no reassurance. She told herself he was busy, that he couldn't be expected to address rumors personally, but a small, aching part of her had hoped. Maybe he would say something, anything, by evening. She couldn't take it anymore. She knocked on his office door, clutching her notebook like armor. "Come in," his voice called. Ethan was at his desk. Sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, eyes fixed on his laptop. He didn't look up. "I assume you've seen the article," Olivia began carefully. "I have," he said, voice clipped, and nothing. Finally, he glanced at her, his expression cool. "We don't fuel gossip by reacting to it." Her chest tightened. "People are saying awful things about me. About us." His eyes narrowed. "There is no us, Ms. Bennett. You're my assistant. Nothing more. Nothing less." The words cut like glass. "I didn't ask for this," Olivia whispered. "I didn't ask to be dragged into your world, or turned into a headline. You think I did?" His voice rose, sharp. "Every move I make is scrutinized. Every handshake, every deal, every step I take. You think I wanted this attention?" Her eyes burned. "No, but you're used to it. I'm not. And when it happens to me, I thought," she broke off, swallowing hard. "I thought you'd have my back." Ethan's jaw tightened. For a flicker of a moment, regret flashed in his eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "This is business," he said flatly. "You'll learn to ignore it." Something inside her cracked. "Right," she said softly. "Business." She turned and walked out before he could see the tears threatening to spill. The rest of the week blurred. Olivia went through the motions, scheduling, taking notes, answering calls, but the joy she had started to feel in her work was gone. The whispers hadn't stopped, and Ethan's silence only deepened the sting. One night, as she packed her things, Lily touched her arm gently. "Liv, you don't deserve this. You're too good to be treated like some rumor." Olivia forced a smile, but her heart was heavy. She had wanted to prove she belonged here. But maybe they were right. Maybe she never would. Ethan watched her from his office that night, the glass wall a cruel barrier. She moved slower than usual, her shoulders hunched, her light dimmed. Something twisted in his chest. He wanted to go to her, to tell her he was sorry, to admit that she was more than just an assistant. Much more, but fear held him back. Fear of scandal, of weakness, of letting down the empire he had been raised to protect. And so he stayed silent, watching her walk out the door, alone. By Friday morning, Olivia had made up her mind. She had spent the week drowning in whispers, her every move under scrutiny. Every time she walked through the office, conversations stopped. Every time she glanced up, someone's eyes darted away. But what cut deepest wasn't the gossip, was Ethan's silence. She had given him chances. She had stood in his office, trembling but honest, waiting for him to say something that would tell her she wasn't alone in this. But the words never came. So she wrote her resignation letter. It was short, professional, typed on crisp white paper. Thank you for the opportunity. Effective immediately. I resign from my position as executive assistant. Her hands shook as she signed her name. That afternoon, she walked into Ethan's office. He looked up, brows knitting at the sight of her pale face and the envelope in her hand. What's that? He asked, voice clipped. My resignation, Olivia said quietly. The silence that followed was sharp, like the pause before thunder. Ethan stood, his chair scraping back, and crossed the room in 3 long strides. You can't be serious, he said. Eyes flashing. I am. She set the envelope on his desk, forcing herself to meet his gaze. This isn't working. I can't keep being the punchline of every whisper in this building. I can't keep pretending it doesn't hurt. You think quitting will make it stop? His voice rose. They'll just find something else to talk about. Maybe, Olivia admitted. But at least it won't be at my expense. Ethan's jaw tightened, his chest rising and falling. You're running. I'm surviving, she shot back. He stared at her, something raw flickering in his eyes. Anger. Yes, but underneath it, desperation. You're better than this, Olivia. Then why don't you treat me like it? She whispered. The words hung heavy, cutting through the space between them. For a moment, Ethan looked like he might say something real, something that had been clawing at the edges of his silence. But then the mask slid back into place, cold, controlled, untouchable. Do what you want, he said flatly. Her heart twisted. She nodded once, biting back tears, and walked out. Packing her desk was like erasing herself from a chapter she hadn't finished writing. A few personal photos, a mug with chipped edges, her stash of granola bars gone in minutes. Co-workers watched quietly, some with pity, some with relief, as though her departure restored order. Lily hugged her tightly. You don't deserve this, Liv. You're worth more. Olivia smiled through the ache. Thanks. For everything. As she stepped into the elevator, she felt the weight of the office lift from her shoulders. But it left behind something heavier, the emptiness of knowing she was walking away from more than just a job that night. Ethan stayed in his office long after the building emptied. The resignation letters sat on his desk, the ink of her signature burning into his mind. He poured himself a glass of scotch, but didn't drink it. He stared out at the skyline, the city alive beneath him, and felt nothing but hollow. He told himself it was for the best, that she deserved freedom from the circus of his world, that he was protecting her, even if she didn't see it. But the truth gnawed at him. He missed her already, the sound of her laugh, the way she argued when she believed she was right, the way she softened edges he hadn't realized he had, and for the first time in years, Ethan Cole felt powerless. Meanwhile, Olivia returned to her tiny apartment in Brooklyn. She curled on the couch with a blanket, the city lights spilling through the blinds. For the first time all week, she wasn't bracing herself against whispers, but the quiet wasn't comforting. It was lonely. Her phone buzzed once, an email notification from a small marketing firm she'd applied to earlier in the week. An interview scheduled for Monday. A new start. A clean slate, and yet, as she stared at the glowing screen, all she could think about was Ethan standing in his office. Eyes stormy, words unsaid. She pressed the phone to her chest. Closing her eyes, she had chosen freedom. So why did it feel like loss? The office felt different without her. Ethan Cole had built his career on controlled tight schedules, precise deals, perfectly calculated risks. But since Olivia Bennett walked out, that control felt brittle. Like glass ready to shatter, her desk sat empty, the chair pushed neatly under. The silence in the mornings pressed heavier than usual, as though the air itself noticed she was gone. For days, Ethan buried himself in work, convincing himself he didn't have time to think about her. But she was everywhere in the half-finished notes on his desk, the neat digital folders she'd left behind, the echo of her laugh when she dared to tease him late at night, and then the reports landed on his desk. It started with a confidential memo from his head of PR. Ethan scanned the pages, his frown deepening with every line. The rumors about Ms. Bennett's relationship with Mr. Cole originated from an internal leak. Preliminary investigation suggests deliberate sabotage, potentially tied to rival executives within the company. He froze, the words burning into him. Sabotage, deliberate. Another page detailed anonymous emails sent to gossip sites, carefully worded to spark scandal. The timing, just after the gala, just when Ethan had danced with Olivia, was no coincidence. Someone had wanted to hurt him, and they'd used Olivia to do it. His jaw tightened, anger coiling hot in his chest. She had taken the brunt of the storm. She had borne the whispers, the judgment, the humiliation, all while he had stayed silent because he thought he was protecting her. But in truth, he had abandoned her. That night, Ethan didn't go home. He stayed in his office, pacing the floor, replaying every moment with her. The resignation letter still sat in his drawer, her neat handwriting etched in his memory. "I thought you'd have my back." The words cut deeper now. She had been right. He hadn't stood beside her when she needed him most. He poured a glass of scotch, then set it aside untouched. For once, work didn't matter. Image didn't matter. What mattered was the truth, hers, his, theirs. And he wasn't about to lose her because of fear. The next morning, Ethan made his move. When the board convened for their weekly meeting, he walked in with the PR report in hand. Conversations faltered as he dropped the memo on the polished table. "Gentlemen," he said, voice like steel, "someone here thought it wise to undermine this company by leaking false stories to the press, using my assistant as a pawn." Murmurs rippled. One executive shifted uncomfortably. "I don't care who it was," Ethan continued, eyes scanning the room. "But know this: if you ever drag an innocent person into your games again, you will answer to me personally." The silence that followed was absolute. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt clarity. He wasn't just fighting for his company anymore. He was fighting for her by afternoon. The story broke. Cole Media CEO denounces false rumors. Assistant was targeted by malicious leaks. Every major outlet carried the headline. Reporters replayed Ethan's statement, analyzing every word. The narrative shifted. Olivia was no longer the gold-digger assistant chasing her boss. She was the victim of corporate sabotage. Ethan didn't care about the media spin. He cared about one thing: whether she had seen it. Meanwhile, in her tiny Brooklyn apartment, Olivia sat at the kitchen table, coffee growing cold in her hands. She had tried to move, a nap lead for jobs, attended one interview, but her heart hadn't caught up. She missed him, not just the power and presence of Ethan Cole, but the moments in between, the rare laugh, the warmth in his eyes when he forgot to be the ice boss. When her phone buzzed with a news alert, she almost ignored it. But the headline caught her eye. Her breath caught as she read the words. Ethan, standing before his board, calling out the leak, defending her by name. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. He hadn't been silent, after all. Not anymore. That evening, as the sun dipped low over the city, a knock sounded on her door. Olivia hesitated, heart hammering. Slowly, she opened it. Ethan stood there, the man who had haunted her every thought. His suit was immaculate, but his eyes, those storm-grey eyes, were raw, unguarded. "Ethan," she whispered. "Olivia." His voice was low, rough, as if he'd been rehearsing this moment all day. "I was wrong." She swallowed hard. "About what?" "About everything." He stepped closer, his gaze locked on hers. "About thinking silence could protect you. About letting fear make me a coward. You deserved better. And I failed you." Her throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes. "You hurt me," she said softly. "I know." His voice cracked. "And if I could take it back, I would. But I can't. All I can do is ask, please, let me make it right." Silence stretched between them, heavy with all the things left unsaid. Finally, Olivia exhaled, her voice barely a whisper. "You fought for me today. I should have fought for you from the start," he said. "And I won't stop now." For a moment, neither moved. Then, slowly, Olivia stepped aside. "Come in," she said, and as Ethan crossed the threshold, the distance between them began to close, not erased, not forgotten, but bridged by the first fragile threads of trust rebuilt. The city was alive outside her window horns blaring, neon signs glowing, but inside Olivia's apartment, time seemed to pause. Ethan Cole stood in her living room, the weight of his presence filling the small space. He had shed the armor of the ice boss. His tie was loose, his shoulders tense, his eyes fixed on her with a kind of raw urgency she'd never seen before. "Olivia," he said quietly, "I didn't come here to beg. I came here to tell you the truth." She crossed her arms, bracing herself. "The truth?" "Yes." His voice was steady, but his hands flexed at his sides as if he were holding something back. "The truth is, I can run $1 billion company. I can negotiate with people twice my age, but I cannot go another day without you." Her heart lurched. "You left," she whispered. "And you let me. I thought it was what you wanted." His voice cracked. "I thought staying silent was protecting you. But I see now I wasn't protecting you. I was protecting myself. From scandal, from risk, from the possibility of losing everything." He stepped closer, eyes burning into hers. "But Olivia, none of it means anything without you. The company, the money, the name. I'd trade it all, right now, if it meant I could keep you." Her throat tightened. She had waited weeks to hear those words. And now that they were here, she didn't know whether to cry or scream. "Why should I believe you?" she asked softly. Ethan exhaled, reached into his jacket pocket, and pulled out something small. A pen, simple, black, with a tiny chip on the clip. Recognition struck her. "That's the pen you used to sign your contract on your first day," Ethan said. His lips curved faintly. "You probably don't even remember, but I do. Because that was the day everything changed. That was the day you spilled coffee on me, looked me straight in the eye, and still didn't back down. You've been defying me ever since, and I've never respected anyone more." Her vision blurred with tears. He sank to one knee. For a man like Ethan, unbreakable, unbreakably was the most vulnerable act imaginable. "Olivia Bennett," he said. his voice low but certain. I don't need chandeliers or diamond rings to prove anything to you. All I need is this. He held up the pen. Because it started with us, right here. And I want to start the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me? Her breath caught. The room seemed to spin, the hum of the city outside fading into nothing. She had dreamed of grand proposals, imagined fairy tale endings. But this simple gesture, rooted in their messy, imperfect beginning, meant more than any diamond ever could. She dropped to her knees in front of him, tears spilling freely. You really are impossible. His lips curved, just slightly. So is that a yes? Yes, she whispered, her voice breaking. God, yes. He exhaled, relief washing over his features. Sliding the pen back into his pocket, he pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a fierceness that spoke of every word unsaid, every moment lost, every second they'd wasted apart. The kiss wasn't polished or perfect. It was desperate, raw, real like them. Later, they sat side by side on her worn-out couch, the city lights spilling through the blinds. Olivia leaned into him, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her as though he'd never let go again. You know, she murmured, most men use rings. I'll get you one, he said dryly. Something simple. Something you'll laugh at me for. She chuckled through her tears. As long as you don't try to buy half of Tiffany's. His lips brushed her hair. No, I learned my lesson. It's not about money. It's about us. She looked up at him, eyes shining. Then promise me one thing, Ethan. Anything. No more silence. No more protecting me by shutting me out. His gaze softened. You have my word. And for once, Olivia believed him. A week later, Olivia stood once again in the lobby of Cole Tower. But this time, whispers didn't sting. They couldn't touch her, because when Ethan walked in, his hand slipped into hers, warm and sure, his eyes daring anyone to question it. The ice boss was gone, and in his place stood a man who had learned that real love wasn't weakness. It was the only thing strong enough to thaw even the coldest heart. 3 months later, the lobby of Cole Tower no longer felt like a battlefield. Olivia adjusted the strap of her leather bag as she walked past the reception desk. She still wasn't used to the way people smiled at her now. No whispers, no sideways glances. Just polite nods, genuine greetings. Good morning, Mrs. Cole, the receptionist said with a grin. Olivia flushed. It's still Olivia. But the title followed her everywhere Mrs. Cole. It was surreal. Only a few months ago, she'd been the new assistant with coffee stains on her blouse. Now, she was married to Ethan Cole, the man half the city once thought untouchable. And the strangest part, she still felt like herself. On the 40th floor, Ethan was already at his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. Old habits died hard. He looked up the second she entered, and the corner of his mouth lifted. You're late, he teased. Olivia raised a brow. It's 8:58. 2 minutes early is on time, he countered, deadpan. She dropped her bag onto the couch and crossed the room, leaning down to kiss him lightly. You're insufferable. You married me, he said, eyes glinting, still questioning that decision, but the smile tugging at her lips betrayed her. Married life hadn't changed everything. Ethan still worked late, still paced the office like a general plotting war, still kept scotch in his drawer for long nights. But now Olivia was there to drag him away from his desk, to remind him the world existed outside boardrooms and spreadsheets and Ethan against. All odds had learned to slow down, not always, not perfectly, but sometimes she'd catch him lingering over breakfast instead of rushing out the door, or laughing with her on their balcony instead of reading emails. Those small cracks in the armor, once rare, had become part of their life. He still terrified half the company. But when he looked at her, his eyes softened in a way that made every whisper, every headline, every sleepless night worth it. One Friday evening, Olivia stopped by his office with takeout containers in hand. Ethan looked up from his laptop, brow furrowed. "What's that?" "Dinner. Chinese. You're not living on protein bars again," he smirked, closing his laptop. "Bossy, efficient," she corrected, sliding the container toward him. They ate together at his desk, chopsticks clinking, laughter filling the room. At one point, Olivia leaned back, watching him attempt to wrangle noodles with more concentration than he gave to million-dollar deals. "You know," she said softly, "you're different now." He paused, glancing at her. "Different how?" "Warmer, softer, still bossy, but less." "Frozen," he chuckled, setting the chopsticks down. "Maybe I just needed the right fire." Her heart squeezed. "Cheesy, true," he countered. Later that night, as they walked out of Coal Tower hand in hand, the city lights stretched before them. Reporters no longer chased their every move. The gossip had died. All that remained was their messy, imperfect, real. Olivia squeezed his hand. "Do you ever regret it? Us?" Ethan stopped, pulling her close. His gaze burned with the same intensity that had once intimidated her. But now it felt like home. "Marrying you was the only decision I never second-guessed," he said simply. Her breath caught, tears stinging her eyes. For all his wealth, all his power, Ethan Cole's greatest gift to her wasn't diamonds or pen. It was this, his honesty, his heart, his willingness to choose her. Again and again, months had passed since the scandal, since the whispers, since the night she thought she had lost him. And yet, standing there in the heart of Manhattan, Olivia realized something. They hadn't just survived this storm, they had built something stronger because of it. And as Ethan kissed her under the city lights, Olivia knew this wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning.